General Synod has met, and it's all about reconciliation over the prayers and love and faith. But is the chasm just too big? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England. On this channel you get my views as a parish priest on all the Christian news happening at the moment. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share and comment, and don't forget to click that notification bell. General Synod has met once again and talked about the living in love and faith process, which includes the prayers of blessing for same-sex couples. Has it moved any further forward? Well, in this video we'll have a look at what happened. Bishop Martyn, the Bishop of Leicester, brought a paper with 3 different parts, which I have done a trilogy of videos on those parts which are here, in which he wanted to reconcile, bring together the General Synod to move forward on this. He brought 10 commitments as well as other aspects for the process of implementing the prayers of love and faith to General Synod. So the process of General Synod was for the paper to be presented, for a debate to happen, amendments to happen, to be rejected or accepted, and then a vote to be taken at the end. It didn't make the vote, interestingly enough, but I'm going to go through in this video some of the main points of what happened. So I want to thank my friends over at Anglican Futures, who on their blog, as this process was happening, put up what was being said and the results. So in his opening speech, Bishop Martyn made 3 main points. He first of all issued an apology to the LGBTQI+ community and others who are concerned that his reconciliation proposal was a sign of rowing back. Basically said he's not rowing back, and he wants to bring this to the session in July of General Synod with things that are quite complicated. As I said before, this is very complicated. They're not going to be easy to implement, these prayers of love and faith, and there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work that hasn't been done, that hasn't come to General Synod for them to look at, such as the pastoral guidance, and that's in the process of still being written. So in one way or another, it was very hard for him in this group of sessions to bring it to February for things to be voted on. So he said, I'm not running back, it's just the process, and he issued his apology. Secondly, he said whether the synod voted on the motion or not, that the work was going to continue to be implemented, whether the session was going to be stopped or not, because he did state in his speech that there was going to be a point of order made to cut short the debate and move on to the next order of business, which is actually what happened. But he's saying that even if that happens, this is still going to be moved forward, that he is taking the will of the General Synod and the prayers of love and faith will be implemented. Finally, he said that reconciliation is at the heart of the gospel of Anglicanism, which held the extremes together. And this is one of the things that really came through on this from the bishop, that he wants reconciliation. He wants as many people to stay in the Church of England as possible, and knowing that some people will leave on both sides, but for the majority to stay. And he said the missionary imperative for this day and age is reconciliation. But as I said before many times, and as it came through in a lot of the speeches, there's just divides. We are divided. One side wants to have same-sex blessings and even same-sex marriage. Another side, which I hold, cannot do that, not just for a matter of conscience, but also as the faith has been handed down to us, the doctrine of the Church of England. We cannot do this. I can't see how these 2 sides can be reconciled. It's like speaking 2 different languages, and to try to find a bridge to build and reconcile over that, I can't see. And that came out in the speeches as well. The speeches were a lot more cordial. There were a few snipes in there as well, but the overall tone was good, which is a good thing. But again, it comes down to the theology and the doctrine we hold, how we interpret that, you could say, on different sides. And because of the interpretation is so different, one side wants to do this and one side can't do this. Reconciliation might work for some people, but I think for a lot of people the gap is just too wide. So as I said, Bishop Martyn put forward a proposal. There was amendments to that. So the first amendment I'm going to speak into was made by Ed Shaw, and basically said, after bridge building, insert and acknowledge that for many in the Church of England, including members of the General Synod, some of the issues raised are not matters on which they can simply agree to disagree. And this was just basically put in to say, look, let's face the reality. And in this session of General Synod, I felt like this is more with these two amendments I'm going to speak about, facing the reality of where we are, how we can move forward. Remember, it was a year ago that the General Synod voted for prayers of love and faith to start to be implemented. However, we didn't know what that looked like at the time. And we're a year down the line now with no way to move forward. Both camps are really just, in their own camps. As I said, I don't see any bridges to be built there. People aren't going to change their minds. And there's a reality now of how we can be the Church of England with these two different views. So this First Amendment was really just speaking and saying, let's just acknowledge this, because it's not really being acknowledged. We know, but let's acknowledge this by putting this amendment in. Speaking for the amendment, Reverend Mark Smith said, it also exposes disconnect between the real depth of our disagreement and the character of the proposals before us. Bishops, you claim to recognise that for many, these are not ones we can agree to disagree, and yet every single proposal, every single strategy, every single position paper that has come out of this process consistently presupposes that these are ultimately matters a dia fora and maps out a way forward on that basis. But that case has never been made theologically. It has only ever been assumed and asserted. So really, Mark Smith there really speaking to the bishops and pushing back on the way that the whole of this has been conducted by the House of Bishops. Remember, the House of Bishops have taken this off and are looking at this, but everything that is coming out is not about the reality of where this is, and this is why Ed Shaw brought his amendment in. So the amendment was voted on, and as you can see, here are the results. For bishops 8, clergy 83 and laity 86, against 20 from the bishops, 92 from the clergy, 98 from the laity, and then you've got your abstentions there. So I don't know how you read those results, but voting against this, 210 people across the houses of clergy, laity and bishops say we don't recognise that there is no reason to agree not to agree, where you've got on the other side 177 saying yes, we do recognise that we just can't agree to disagree. Remember, the Liberals are more wanting to keep the church together, wanting to keep the church as one, and are fighting against differentiation, where we are under one church but have two different churches in a sense in there. They don't want that at all. So 210 are saying, whether they believe that or not, that's what they're probably voting for more, is to keep the church together. But this amendment was just about admitting that there is disagreement and we can't agree to disagree. And 177 people voted, yeah, this is absolutely right. For me, we have to face the reality. We have to face the reality that we can't agree to disagree. We can't be all one happy family in a church on which something we so fundamentally disagree. And that shows up in the next amendment that was brought in by Charlie Scrin, rector of All Souls Langham Place, where he said in his amendment, leave out from the proposal to living in love and faith and insert proposals for a set of commitments together with a settlement based on legally secure structural provision. So in this amendment, what he wanted to say was what I've just said. Look, we cannot agree to disagree. Where it comes to voting, I can't vote for what you put forward, you can't vote for what I would put forward, and it's just going to continue and continue along this road, and we can't have that happening, and we really can't. A lot of people on Twitter and have been saying, X have been saying, they're just tired of this, and we need to move forward, and we need to find a way to move forward. And this is the way that those who are the traditional view of marriage want to move forward. Give us structural provision. Give us what we are asking for, and then we can live in a Church of England. It won't be easy to live that way in some circumstances. There's got to be ways to move forward on that, but at least we are secure where we are. And he even said, in General Synod, you can have times where the progressives come and they vote on all these things to do with LLF, and without people like him there to vote against it. And there are bigger things for this outside of the General Synod as well, how we function as parishes and dioceses. And yes, a lot of that would be worked out. And this is, for me, is a good amendment because it finds a way forward. It's not just to say we want to split the Church of England. It's not something that we really want to do. This is something, remember, that has come upon us. So we were moving forward just as we were up until last February. But we need to find a way forward. And, we cannot see any other way because we can't stay as one happy church. We need to find a way forward. Anyway, as you're not surprised, it didn't get voted through. So for, there were bishops 8, clergy 78, laity 81. Against, 24 bishops, 98 clergy and 100 laity, with quite a few abstentions. So there were more people that voted against this. The number went up to 222 and 167 voted for this, rather than the other amendment, which are higher numbers for and lower numbers against. And I can understand that is asking for differentiation, different structures to be built in. And of course, some people on the Conservative side will not want that. But how can we move forward? That's a big question in my mind, and that's a big job for the bishop now to look at, because, the numbers are still high. The voices have been heard on this. So this is where the proceedings stop, with a point of order calling for the motion to move on to the next business. Actually, both sides voted for this. So 332 voted to move on to the next business. Only 69 voted against. So this comes back to the July General Synod. It doesn't come back as the proposal as it was. That's completely fallen away. The reason why the numbers were high voting on this, the Conservatives would not vote for what was proposed in the original paper anyway. The revisionists and the Liberals, they didn't want to vote for it as well, and they didn't want to vote against it as well. So this was the easiest thing, to call for next business, huge majority to say yes. It now comes back to General Synod in July as something new. So there is a lot of work to be done between this session of Synod and the July session of Synod, especially as there is extra work for the bishop. Remember, he is alone in this. He's looking for another bishop after the bishop of Newcastle stepped down from the process to co-lead with him. So that's got to be sorted out as well. He also wants to bring in a team to help him. And taking away and adding all that was said at this synod, and because this paper failed, it needs to come back for a paper that will pass the vote and be supported by both groups, so things can move forward. That's a lot to work to do. Again, can he bring both of those two groups together? It's a big ask. So the Bishop of Leicester took to X, Twitter, and said, at the end of the Synod debate on LLF, here are my reflections. We've had an open, thoughtful and gracious debate about how we might move forward together as a church in the next stage of implementing our decisions on LLF and the work of reconciliation amid our divisions. However, there is more work to be done to develop concrete proposals on really important questions we face, and a number of people thought it would not be helpful to proceed to a vote without these concrete proposals. I can see the logic in that. And that's, as I said before, there's nothing concrete here. Everything was proposed, and I said this in my other videos, was yet to be rewritten or yet to be seen. So you're kind of voting on something on good faith. And remember, the trust for the House of Bishops is really low at the moment. And so people were just not going to vote for it on that basis. We're not going to say, yes, go ahead and we'll vote for this and we'll wait to see what happens. We want to see what happens now. And that's a shame that all of that work wasn't done before, but that's where we are. He continues, I was struck by the generous and gracious tone, and I'm grateful for that. I believe members of Synod would not have been here if they did not believe that some degree of communion is still possible. That gives me great hope and reassurance, and that we will find a way through this. I don't know, he's there, he's reading the room, I'm just watching online and picking things up. I think people are there not to find the communion. Again, what else has he got to say on this? But I think they're there because they are trying to move forward what they want, or protect, what we hold to. What I'm picking up very clearly, though, is a growing desire in parishes for the Church of England to reach agreement and to get on with serving our nation. So that will be my priority in the next few months as we seek to develop concrete proposals before the next meeting of Synod this summer. So there's a lot of work to do. What we do know is that the the prayers of love and faith for the experimental period, that's not going to happen anytime soon. The roots of how to get the prayers of love and faith through and change the doctrine in the Church of England is now, again, we don't know it because there's no concrete proposals. This is why July is going to be so important. July is going to be huge because this has to be concrete. If it's not concrete, it's going to fall by the wayside once more. And I tell you what, the revisionist will be up in arms if that happens.